Let's deal with the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, because the state's application to re-examine Sergeant Vusimuzi Mogane has on the car tracking evidence has been granted in the murder trial sitting in Pretoria. That's the trial within the trial. We speak to legal analyst Mpumelelo Zikalala to take a look at what it is that we heard throughout the course of the day today. Thank you very much, sir, for your patience and your time with us. Perhaps let's start with the arguments as we heard them from the state, arguing why this AVL should be admitted as evidence and why Sergeant Mogane should be re-examined. Let's take a look, listen at this.
The process, as already intimated, my lord, we make the submission that these allegations are so serious that they need to be investigated, and if the AVL records can assist in the determination of these issues, it is then in the interest of justice that the evidence on AVL be presented to determine if these serious allegations are true or not.
Mpumelelo Zikalala, the judge agrees it is in the interest of justice that AVL recording be admitted as evidence.
I think the judge was taking a more liberal approach in terms of saying what I want as a presiding officer is to get down to the bottom of the truth. I need details of exactly what happened, both from the side of the state, because it's going to prove that the persons that were coming in front of this court to give evidence are telling the truth, but also from the side of the accused. We are alleging that they've been assaulted in these instances in the number of stops and goes that have been happening in this particular matter. I need to come and be presented with that type of evidence. What is going to be more important is that who is going to present this particular evidence? Is it going to be taken as if that particular report cannot be disputed? Or are you going to have an independent individual who's an expert, knows very well how that AVL type of report is supposed to be looked at and its integrity and how secure is it? It will be the individual which is going to come in and present that type of evidence so that it's accepted by the court.
In fact, let's listen to the defense arguing exactly that Sergeant Mogane is not an expert, and this requires an expert. This is what we heard from Advocate Mngomezulu.
The nature of the AVL records requires an expert who will be able to explain the synopsis, functioning, and the recording of the AVL system. Thirdly, the state has not laid the basis of the AVL's report, and the state has not established the agent who tracked the motor vehicle or the movement of the Toyota Fortuner as from the 16th of June 2020 to the 27th of October 2020 and beyond. The role of an expert witness and the evaluation of the expert witness. An article was drawn from Tools and Trade. It's headed 3rd March 2021. The expression expert witness is ordinarily used to refer to a witness whose opinion and the reasons on which they are based are admissible in evidence in litigious, technical, and scientific nature, enables such witness to draw inference and form views in circumstances where a court or a tribunal is unable to do so reliably.
Mpumelelo Zikalala, the defense argues that indeed an expert is needed here, because also they went as far as saying that Sergeant Mogane is biased, right? Because he's intimately involved here, and after all, he's the one who is accused of being there when the assault of accused number 2 happened. But the judge, in delivering his judgment, asked, where is the injustice if the court hears the evidence and there's no prejudice? He went as far as making an example of Chris Barnard, and he says there's a particular particular Xhosa gentleman who helped, or rather who taught Chris Barnard how to perform surgery. He was not educated, but he had the experience, arguing that you don't have to study to acquire, to be an expert rather, but you just need that knowledge that you have acquired through experience. Was that a correct interpretation?
I would respectfully say no. At the end of the day, when you are dealing with expert witness or expert evidence, as you are in this case, you need someone who's going to be able to test the integrity of the system that needs to be utilized. So if there would be an assertion by the defense, for example, to then say, what measures are then put in place to make sure that the reports which appear on the AVL are protected, they are not tampered with, someone does not, or the AVL system itself does not record inaccurate systems or inaccurate times and dates. If the person who's sitting there says, I'm simply a driver, I don't even know how the system is installed, then it means that the expert witness or the evidence that you are trying to pull through is not going to be, or ought not to be accepted by the court, because there is no way in which the scientific accuracy of that particular evidence can then be accepted if there are certain things that can be, or holes that can be drilled into that particular evidence. So the court in this case, well, maybe you could say because the person was driving this particular vehicle and it's in line with the manner in which it was certified, well, the only thing that can be accepted from that is the route which has been taken as stated by the witness is indeed the correct one. But if you are going to deal with the content of the evidence or the content of the report, you need someone who's an expert. You need someone who understands the nitty-gritties of that particular system, a person who's going to understand the scientific inputs that need to be inserted into a system and the results, and be able to interpret what those results are. Because if that was the case, then you wouldn't be needing cell phone evidence experts who are going to pour into our courts and present to us what does it mean when we receive a call, when we don't receive a call, and how are we coming from. The danger in doing that is that at the end of the assessment of your whole evidence, it then decreases the probability or the weight that should be attached to the evidence as a presiding officer in determining whether what has been stated is actually the truth or not. So you are taking away one of the important tools that you can be able to utilize to determine whether someone is speaking the truth or not. And the only remedy that could have been there is simple. Bring the person who is able to interpret what the AVL report is stating and let them go into the witness box and present that evidence, and then you are done.
Well, the judge disagrees because he says between man and machine is less likely to make mistakes. But Mpumelelo Zikalala, in closing, the fact that there was a judgment that was ready with so much case law that was cited, is that unusual before hearing the arguments? Because on Friday, court adjourned, Advocate Mngomezulu was not feeling well, but those heads of arguments were made today in relation to this AVL evidence. Is it unusual that the judgment has already been prepared, or is that standard?
Not necessarily, because heads of argument would have been submitted way earlier. You would find that the judge would already come to a certain conclusion, and depending on what the law actually states, and the number and the type of the subject matter which is being argued, so it would be much easier for him to come back to a conclusion. But it's not something that we can draw any inference on. One can even argue that you have a proactive judge that has been able to hear and listen to the submissions that have been made. But despite that being said, despite the machine and science being much more accurate, the science or the machines that you are using, if incorrect information has been inserted on them, they are going to deliver incorrect results. So you need, at the end of the day, someone who's going to say correct information and the correct variables were inserted into this independent scientific method that you are using, hence the results that you have now. Otherwise, you are going to deal or preside over a matter in which things that you are assessing upon are incorrect, and the only thing that's going to happen is that you're going to come to incorrect conclusions.
Because you need man to operate the machine, in this instance at least. Thank you very much, Mpumelelo Zikalala. He's a legal analyst.